Hello, Jordan Burris here. Would you like to hear a song? Today's song is a folk rock masterpiece and the breakthrough single for one of the greatest singer-songwriters of his generation. The song also served as the inspiration for another song, which would become an even bigger hit when it was recorded 1 year later. But before we get to the song, here's a brief bit of history about the song and the songwriter, James Taylor. In February of 1970, James Taylor's second album, Sweet Baby James, was released. And in August of that year, Warner Brothers Records would release the second single, Fire and Rain. The song would move to number 3 on the Billboard charts and become an acoustic classic. But it would take years of heartache, addiction, and failure for James Taylor to be able to write the legendary tune. In 1968, James Taylor was the first American signed to Apple Records, which was founded by the Beatles. Paul McCartney and George Harrison were instrumental in signing Taylor, and in between sessions for the White Album, they even helped produce and performed on what would be his self-titled debut album, James Taylor. Although well received by critics, the album was a disappointment. It sold poorly, due in large part to James Taylor not being able to promote the record, as he was hospitalized in Massachusetts as well as in New York, battling an addiction to heroin. His relationship with Apple Records was terminated, but James Taylor continued touring around the United States, which included a triumphant performance at the Newport Folk Festival in July of 1969. Unfortunately, shortly thereafter, he was in a motorcycle accident and broke both of his hands and his foot. He was laid up for months, unable to play, but he did continue to focus on music, writing new songs in a bid to return to the studio. Once fully recovered, James Taylor signed with Warner Brothers Records, moved to California, and began work on his second album. The album, Sweet Baby James, is considered a masterpiece in its entirety, but the anchor to the collection is Fire and Rain. From its delicate guitar introduction to the soft melodic piano accompaniment played by Carole King, the song transports the listener into a vivid, introspective storyline. James Taylor said he wrote the song in 3 parts. The first was the heartbreak he felt when his childhood friend Suzanne Scherner passed away. Scherner had committed suicide while James Taylor was in London working on his first album. The second part was addressing his drug addiction as well as his struggles with mental illness. And the third part finds our character moving forward while remembering the pathways from which he came. Quote, "There's hours of time on the telephone line talking about things to come, sweet dreams and flying machines and pieces on the ground." The line about flying machines and pieces on the ground was a reference to a band that James Taylor was in called James Taylor and the Flying Machine, which had failed. Taylor remembers the hope and anticipation that he and his bandmates had at their potential success, only to see it dissolve, leaving Taylor with no other option other than to examine the failure and move forward. Quote, "I'm walking my mind to an easy time, my back turns towards the sun. Lord knows when the cold wind blows, it'll turn your head around." End quote. Fire and Rain has been recognized by the National Endowment for the Arts, as well as the Recording Industry of America for its historical significance, and was placed on their list of greatest songs of the 20th century. And finally, one of James Taylor's longest-lasting collaborators, as well as his friend, is Carole King, who again played on Fire and Rain. In the song's refrain, the line, "I've seen lonely times when I could not find a friend," inspired King to write a song for her friend, James Taylor. A song that would be a massive hit 1 year later in 1971 for both King and Taylor, the ever-affirming, "You've Got a Friend." And there you go, a brief bit of history about Fire and Rain, written by the great James Taylor.
Just yesterday morning, let me know you were gone. Suzanne, the plans they made put it into you. I walked out this morning and I wrote down this song. I just can't remember who to send it to. Oh, I've seen fire and I've seen rain. Seen sunny days I thought would never end. Seen lonely times when I could not find a friend. But I always thought that I'd see you again. Won't you look down upon me, Jesus? You gotta help me make a stand. Gotta see me through another day. My body is aching, my time is at hand, and I won't make it any other way. Oh, I've seen fire, and I've seen rain, seen sunny days I thought would never end, seen lonely times when I could not find a friend. But I always thought that I'd see you again. Been walking my mind to an easy time. My back turns towards the sun. Lord knows when the cold wind blows, it'll turn your head around. Now there's hours of time, a telephone line, talking about things to come. Sweet dreams and flying machines and pieces on the ground. Oh, I've seen fire and I've seen rain, seen sunny days I thought they'd never end, seen lonely times when I could not find a friend. But I always thought that I'd see